Welcome to the Multifaceted Executive, the podcast where leadership meets diversity, innovation, and impact. We go beyond boardrooms and titles to bring you powerful stories and insights from executives of all backgrounds. Get ready to challenge conventional thinking, gain fresh perspectives, and discover the leadership lessons you won't hear anywhere else. I'm your host, Amanda Cosme-Reddie, founder and CEO of the Multifaceted Executive and Take Brand Consulting. Let's get started. Welcome back. I'm your host, Amanda Cosme-Reddie, founder and CEO for the Multifaceted Executive and Take Brand Consulting. Joining me today is Alicia Perkins, another multifaceted executive that's here to share her story and insights with us. A multifaceted executive is a leader with many facets. They're not defined by any single industry, background, or leadership style, but rather their ability to adapt, inspire, and create impact across different spaces. As the CEO of The Best You, Alicia is known for calling out corporate culture's blind spots and elevating how professionals lead from within. And so today's episode, Alicia will share how to lead with service and let faith do the rest. Alicia, I invite you to further introduce yourself and start with your upbringing and what's led you to become who you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not the path that I chose. If you would have asked me if I thought at this point in my life that I would be here, I would just say no. But, I can definitely see how everything led here. I had a pretty average household, and how I got to this point was, I'll first say this, I didn't think I would own my own anything. So when you think about the job market, it's all over the place, right? Or when you think about having to land that next role, it could be overwhelming. And so with my experience, I was in HR for over 10 years. And so as far as having to hire people, that's the thing I did. I saw a lot of people in that area was having a very hard time. I had a desire to help them get jobs, and then it went to, okay, now you have this great job, and now what? And so I've been owning my own business now for 5 years.
Nice. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that in the past you've talked about how you've led with service, and it almost sounds like your career has brought you to that epiphany that you had essentially on making sure that you're leading with service and faith. I've told everybody, the multifaceted executive, we're bringing together many people from different backgrounds, and some of that includes religion too. You and I are Christian, and so we do have a belief in God. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody does, right? Everyone either has their own belief or no belief at all, right? So when we talk about leading with faith, it doesn't have to be about religion. It can be whatever someone believes in and how that carries them throughout their career. How has leading with service and faith brought you to this place where you've recognized your values as a leader? And tell us a little bit about those values too.
Yeah, so I would definitely say for my core values will be faith and service. My faith and my core value has shaped everything. Me having those, they allow me to just serve in a way that is not all about me. Amanda, I'm pretty sure that you yourself see it all the time. Like, we now are in a society where everybody is for themselves, but me having those core values as my faith, it just allows me not just show up, but also to just have heart in everything that I do. And I will say this, I did not build that overnight. That came from years of me not having faith, right? And it also came of, I didn't have a core value of I wanted to serve people. It came of me always trying to prove myself. And I'm a firm believer that you can't serve others and also try to prove yourself at the same time. One of the things that allows me to really serve well is knowing that it's not just about me.
Yeah. And I also think that when people hear serve, they probably think about servant leadership, which is natural. I'm a servant leader myself. I'm a volunteer. I'm a business owner. A lot of what I do is giving back to other people. But it's not just about serving other people. It's about serving yourself, right? What is meant for you will be for you when you start aligning opportunities, the people that you're connecting with the things that serve you and your purpose. And I definitely hear that coming from you as you talk about your journey and your values and what's important to you. How do you leverage that when you're working with potential, clients of yours?
Yeah, so this wasn't an approach that I've always had, but in the last 3 years or so, I've taken a more holistic approach to how I serve with my clients. First, the focus was me helping them to land their next opportunity or helping them to plan out what's next. But I really think since like 2020, when the whole world started to shift, you started to see that there was more of a need there, right? Even with the clients that I serve, it's all about me, one, helping them to break free from who they think that they should be and helping them to lean into who they are. And I know for some people that can sound like fluff, but it's not, because when you start to operate out of who you think you should be, there is no fulfillment in that whatsoever, because even in that process, you'll find yourself having to wear a mask, right? It's not me just helping them to plan that next move, but it's also helping them to be sure that, hey, that's your next position.
Right. Yeah. And that's hard for people to not so much understand, but really uncover, who am I? What motivates me? What is my purpose? And a lot of the work that you and I do is similar. You're very much like that career strategist. You want to make sure that, people know who they are and how they can lead and what they're capable of. Similar to me, I work with my clients on building their brand, and to have an effective brand that is strategic, you need to understand what your core values are. What is your purpose in life? Because then you start to attract the right opportunities. Earlier, you mentioned proving yourself. And I think a lot of us do that early on in our career, even honestly up to the executive level.
Up to
We
the
are
executive level.
trying. We are we are trying to prove ourselves, and that was actually the first episode I did, was a solo episode, and I talk about how I shifted my mindset away from trying to prove my value versus demonstrating it.
That's
There's a
good.
huge difference there. When
Yeah.
you are trying to prove something, you are trying to make sure that everyone sees what you want them to see, versus when you're demonstrating, people see what you are actually doing. You're a good example, Alicia. I follow your content and I appreciate everything that you share. You demonstrate your expertise through all of the content and support that you're offering your clients. You're not over here trying to prove to people that, I'm smart, I know what it takes to move forward in your career or to change your life in a meaningful way. You're doing it. And when you're doing it, you're demonstrating it. I imagine you have a lot of clients that come to you and they are kind of stuck in that I need to prove myself mindset, versus you already got it. You just have to demonstrate it, and you have to do X, Y, and Z to get there. Is there anybody, and you don't have to name names, but maybe there's someone that comes to mind that you've worked with that was really stuck in that stage of, I'm trying to prove something?
Well, it's really the majority of the clients that I work with. A lot of them are more established, and it's when you are established in your career and you're very smart, you'll say, no, that's not me. I don't do that. But I think that we've trained ourselves like, no, I'm not trying to prove myself. I just want to be sure that they see all of these great things I do, right? But when you start to prove yourself, you'll find yourself, one, you'll actually start to like shrink, right? And you don't realize when you're always in this mode of trying to prove who you are, you'll just easily conform to expectations and rooms that you probably shouldn't have really been there. It was something that you said earlier, in order to serve other people, how it's important for us to serve us. And I believe the same thing, meaning in order for me to show up and lead, I got to be sure that everything up here is right. And I've noticed with myself, when I was in that mode of always trying to prove, it did the exact opposite. It made me unsure. It made me insecure because I was hyper aware of what other people thought. And especially in corporate America, that's not the kind of place that you want to set your self-worth on, right? Because Amanda, those environments change so much, and you can find yourself in environments where there's nothing wrong with you, but they will have folks in that space who just don't really care for you. And so if you're one that's always trying to like shape shift to please everybody around you, you'll find yourself exhausted.
Yeah, absolutely. People pleasers, right? When you become a people pleaser, and you are doing things because you want different people to like you or support you, that happens a lot especially
Yeah.
because, even when you get to the executive level, it is a lot about your relationships and not
Mm-hmm.
just who you know, but who knows you and the power and influence that these people have. That really matters when you are at the
Yeah.
executive level. And so finally, when a lot of especially underrepresented groups, and I want to talk about this because I know your audiences
Yeah.
comes from underrepresented groups, but them especially because they're few and far between, it's like they have a heavier weight on their shoulder of, I really need to step into this role and prove my worth and prove that I
Yeah.
belong here. But if you're there, you've already demonstrated what
Yep.
it took to get there. So there is no need to prove anything from here. Now it's just about
Absolutely.
applying those skills and that experience you have to grow. Of course, there's going to be mistakes, and I think that's part of it too. It doesn't matter who you are. You could seem like the most confident person in this world, and we all know you still have insecurities. You still have those internal thoughts that come to your mind, like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
am I doing this right? Is someone noticing the a little bit of imposter
Everybody does.
syndrome? Like,
Yes.
everybody has it. But, point being is that when you are in that type of role, you're going to make mistakes. Every executive makes mistakes. Obviously, the mistakes that you make can't be as substantial as you
Mm-hmm.
would make in your earlier career, but that's why you've been through those things. So you can learn from them. Now it's about making a different kind of set of mistakes and knowing that
Yeah.
it's okay as long as you are surrounded by people that support you, which is important too, then you'll be fine. And if you're not around a group of people that support you, then maybe that is not the right environment for you. I think a
No,
lot of times you try to
absolutely.
force it, right? Like people, if I'm at a company for 15 years and I get my promotion to this executive level at a Fortune company or wherever I'm
Yeah.
at, it's almost like I've worked so hard to get here, so I'm here now and I have to be in this. But you really don't. We don't have to be in these situations that are not
Yeah.
helping our growth and really embracing the mistakes that we're making to learn.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because you said, like, once you reach that executive level, it really is all about you trying to build relationship and build the actual influence that you want. Because once you get to a certain level, friend, everybody got this experience, right? So, not saying that your experience is not important, but your experiences is not what is going to allow you to stand out from everybody else. And so, it is about being able to build relationships. And in order to build relationships that are have depth, it takes them having to have a level of trust with you
Sure.
and being able to understand that that trust a lot of times come from them seeing you not do everything right. A lot of the clients I work with, they feel like if I'm 100% in every room that I'm in, then that means everybody will, in their minds, they'll see me as great. But it's usually the opposite that
Yeah.
happens, right? You don't realize that it's not about the mistakes that you make. It's all about recovery. And I think that people don't think enough about that because it doesn't matter what job title you have. At the end of the day, we're all human, right? And so I
Yes.
think if we allow a little bit more transparency and a lot more humanity, I think that is what people are like craving now
Yeah.
is they want to feel like we all share something.
Yep. Yeah. And that I imagine makes people feel uncomfortable sometimes. The people that are more
Yeah.
used to traditional, like, power and your title and the money you
Mm-hmm.
make and your status, that makes those people feel uncomfortable. Like, people are talking about feelings and how we
Right.
should be treating people. And it's so funny too, because even when we think about the diversity, equity, inclusion landscape and what's
Mm-hmm.
happening and how we saw our new president come into office, he's like, no more DEI.
Yeah.
So several companies was like, okay, great. I've been waiting for this moment. It's like, those are the leaders I'm talking about. They'll follow a trend because it could bring more customers, it could bring talent. And now, from a political lens, I'm free of this DEI stuff that's happening. And it's
Yeah.
crazy because your consumers and your employees see right through it. As soon as you give up something just because of a trend, that goes to show you were never really strategizing or committed to it from the
Not at all.
beginning. And
Right.
that is truly poor leadership. Like, and it's sad too because it's a lot of the companies that feel invincible, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, Target, okay, well, I mean, people are still going to shop at Target no matter what, so we're going to do what we do. But that's not that's not what we're seeing these days. There's new
Yeah, their sales
generations
have dropped.
coming in.
Yeah.
Yes, their sales
Mm-hmm.
have dropped. There's,
Yeah.
and then it's not to say that's all from DEI, of course, but I'm sure there's a part of it because I've heard a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people boycotting. But
Yeah.
it goes to show that there is a transformation that is happening with leadership, with how companies are run and operated. And so this is a perfect time for people to really step into leadership roles where, they're not afraid to lead with influence versus power. And there's a
Right.
huge difference there because there is power in influence. When you are able to influence people in different ways, you hold a certain power, but it's not like that power that you feel because of your title or your
Yeah.
status, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk a lot about that, like, because, like you were saying, it's the influence that you want, because authority is do this thing because I said so. And that
Right.
authority will have everybody saying, okay, sure. But the influence is where you're able to change how they think about something, right? Because what you should want as an executive is buy-in. I don't want everybody thumbs up because I have the authority, but I want them to have faith in the things that I say. And you want the influence to change how they think. I've worked in roles to where I've said yes to things that I did not care anything about, but I've also worked under people who had the influence to actually change my mind about something. And I even saw how I was able to show up and operate in something that I really thought was good. We're in this world now where everybody just wants to be seen, but I don't think a lot of people understand what service is, because it's one thing to be seen, it's another thing to operate in service.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's the thing, right? If we can think about leading with service to ourselves and others as a
Mm-hmm.
strategy, then we're actually able to clearly take action and do the things that we need to do to influence the right people, our target
Yeah.
audience, right? And
Right.
that is similar when you're building a brand for yourself. You have to be
Yeah.
able to be clear about who you are, what you want. And you talk a lot about clarity too. So I definitely would love for you to get into that. But I'm curious, like you said, you didn't build your own brand overnight. It took time, it took nurturing. What was maybe one of the most uncomfortable challenges that you've faced on your journey, and how do you feel like you overcame that?
Well, I would definitely say one, thinking that in order to be perceived as maybe an expert or maybe somebody who was well versed in something, that they had to look a certain way. Amanda, I have my own podcast on LinkedIn and on YouTube. I go live a lot. And I want to be able to feel like myself. But when I first started, I didn't think that I could, right? Having to find my own feel, my own vibe, my own mode, and being able to understand that when you understand having an expertise, it doesn't have to always look the same way, especially in the space that I am. There are not a lot of people who look like me in my space, right? So a lot of times when you first are starting something, you are trying to look for somebody that you can kind of look towards, right? It's not saying that the other people are doing anything wrong, but I think it's the hardest thing for me was being able to find my space and being able to understand that I was here to serve, right? Something that I also had to understand was I'm not here to serve everybody,
Yes.
because the reality is that I can't, right? So I'm only here to serve who I am here to serve. And then once I got a few clients that we were not a good fit, and I think that was more on my part, because again, you feel like I got to show up a certain way. But how like weird is it if you see me on a podcast or on a live stream, and then once me and you are on a Zoom call, you like, who is this? Right? It's so important for me now to really show up as I am, so I can make sure every opportunity, like anything that comes my way, is for me. And then also it's, even with owning a business or whatever you do, a lot of people find it hard to be consistent. And a lot of times you're not being consistent because it's not who you are. But
Yeah.
for as me having to do a live stream or having to do a podcast or whatever I do, I feel fine because I love what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you bringing up the consistency part because it's so
Mm-hmm.
important, especially when you build a brand for yourself. Obviously, your brand will evolve with changes, whether there are changes to your goals, to just life changes that happen, career changes.
Yeah.
But The most important thing is the foundational aspects of your brand, which are your core values, your
Yep.
purpose, and your value proposition. All of
Yep.
that should essentially remain the same. And it should be something that allows you to evolve depending on the rooms that you're in, the people that you're engaging with, etc. And to your point, you cannot serve everyone. And that was actually
Yeah.
really hard for me to understand because I am a servant leader at heart. And so the best of me wants to make sure that everybody gets served.
Yeah.
But I have to be realistic too. We're not going to be the right fit sometimes, me and a specific client, or even building connections and relationships when I'm networking. I'm not going to click with everybody I meet, and that's okay. Why waste time building relationships or careers or whatever it is that are not the right fit for you? And that's why having a brand is so important, because it really helps you stay true to what are the things that are important for you to grow personally and professionally. I notice that a lot with the clients that I meet. And I also feel like it's important that we are in the right spaces. I'm, for example, one that attends a lot of events, but I'm not going to attend every event just for the heck of it. It has to truly align with like my goals and the people I need to be in the room with. And quite frankly, a lot of the clients that I meet are through networking, through events that I'm going through, or referrals that will come in. What about you? Like, where do you feel like you're seeing a lot of your clients kind of come in? Is it through engaging with your content? Is it through events? And I know your husband's a pastor too, right? So I'm sure you go to church. Giving the audience ideas, where can I get out and meet the right people? How do I really figure that out?
Yeah. Well, one, I would say definitely depends on like what are the outcomes that you want from that. Because this is the thing, like, you know, how I meet people to build a relationship versus the people that actually want to work with me is completely different. Because ironically, the people who say, okay, yes, I want to hire her as my coach, I like have never heard of them. Like, I've never seen them engage with any of my content. They're just all of a sudden there. But as far as like me being able to build relationships, especially with me owning a business, you know, and I work from home, it can get lonely sometimes, right? Yeah. Because it's not just about building relationships. I think you should have some relationships that are for fun or to explore other people. But I think you do need some relationships that kind of share, like you guys share the same something, the same goals, the same role. Like they share something with you, because I have relationships in my life that I love them, but they don't always understand the struggles that you have when you own your own business. And so I have been able to form great relationships with a lot of people online, you know, and it's me being clear on like what are those outcomes that I want. I haven't had a lot of opportunity to kind of get out in the area that I'm in so much, because our area it's not small, but it's not huge either. So I'm like you, and I don't just hop up at events and just go. It has to be a reason why. But I definitely do love this age of AI and just online space that allows us to be able to meet people all over the world that we would not have met. Like Amanda, we would not have met if it wasn't for LinkedIn or Zoom or these great tools that we have. So I'll definitely say within the last probably like 5 years, you definitely had to rethink, how do I find folks?
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned you're in a smaller town. Where are you based out of for the audience?
Beaumont, Texas.
Okay.
So it's about an hour outside of Houston. So.
Okay. Yeah, Texas is huge, so I'm sure there's a lot that happens.
Huge and hot. Yes. Huge and hot.
Oh my gosh, girl, you know I know about heat. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's about that time. Yes, it is about that time. You know, I swear, I feel like the heat sometimes gets us thinking crazy.
Oh,
like your whole day.
Like that alone, you're like, I don't want to go out and meet anybody. And then and here in Texas, because I went to Las Vegas about 4 years ago, and you know it's extremely hot out there too.
Yes, yep.
But it's a dry heat. So it really wasn't that bad. But down in South in Texas, it's like wet heat. So, you know, I could find myself outside for like 5 minutes, girl, and I'm like drenched. So
yeah. And it's same way for me. And I have like obviously this curly hair. And so I'm actually from Chicago originally. So I know all too well about the humidity. And like every time I walk outside, my hair was like in afro status. That time I came home, because no amount of mousse or gel.
No.
I think we don't even realize it, but even things like that can put us off our game sometime, right? Like a lot of us like to look and feel our best.
Oh,
If we're going
absolutely.
into a presentation, if we're
Mm-hmm.
going to an event or we're going to speak on an event, we want to look and feel our best. Life, climate changes, all this kind of stuff
Girl,
can come in the
everything.
middle of all that,
Yes.
right? I
We
can walk
can.
in and be like, my hair looked great and now it's all frizzy and now I'm all worried about what people are going to be thinking
Yes,
about my
yes.
hair. When really, probably that detail matters more to me than it does to them.
Right. Like it's times that Amanda, I've done events and like workshops and I'm like at the end I'm like, oh my God, that was horrible. And like people come to me like, girl, this is amazing, like in
Right?
tears. But you know, you're like it's like we're always so hard on ourselves. We're harder on ourselves than other people are.
Yeah, we are our own biggest critic, right?
Yeah.
When I was starting the podcast, that was something I thought about. What if I mess up, or what if the episode doesn't get any views, or that's part of being a leader is you have to take risks. You
Yeah.
have to get uncomfortable and do the things that you're scared to do, or maybe
Yeah.
not even scared, but intimidated, overwhelmed, whatever that looks like for you. And I
Yeah.
think it's important that executives know this too, because it's almost like when you get to this level, you're like, oh, I need to be perfect. I need to have learned everything I need to
Yeah.
know by this point in my life. And that's not true. You're going to have distractions. Anything that
Mm-hmm.
deters you from your goal and what you are trying to achieve is a distraction. And
Right.
the more that we allow distractions, it could be my frizzy hair, it could be that gut feeling I get when I'm nervous about something. Anytime we give into any type of distraction, that is where we get the imposter syndrome and we tend to
Yeah.
kind of veer off course.
Yeah. And you have to be clear. Like
Yes.
you got to know what is all of this for. I remember when I have a daughter, she's 6 now, but I remember when I was having her, I've never had anything like big happen to me as far as my health. Like I've never had a bone broken. I never had surgery. So I had to have an actual like C-section. And for months, I think I found out and I was like 5 months, I was gonna have one. And I was terrified. Like the thought of me laying on a table with my my stuff exposed, like my like all of my insides out and I'm awake, it brought this fear to me. But around like month 8 and 9, I started to get excited. My focus was not on that anymore. The excitement to see her started to override the fear that I had. I teach my clients how to move past the fear because it doesn't matter what you do. Fear is science-based. It's like anytime you are doing anything new, your brain is like, stop it. It's about how is it that I move past it? And that is you being clear on that why, because it's that why that allows you to move past that fear. So,
Yeah,
mhm.
that's very critical to understand here, right? Like this is not about being perfect. It's
Mm-mm.
about having clarity in what you bring to the table and who you are as a leader. I think that a lot of the times we try to live up to what people want us to be versus
Mhm.
what we know to be true about ourselves.
Right,
And I'm
right.
sure you've seen that too working with clients. Where do you feel like the biggest hurdle for them when it comes to being clear about something? Or is it also sometimes just not really knowing who they are enough to bring clarity to each of their conversations and
Yeah.
interactions?
I think the biggest challenge is them like having to get past that there is no one right way.
Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of my clients keep thinking, like, no, it has to be done this way. But I had a coach that I worked with and she said something to me that to this day, I say almost every day, that is, Alicia, everything works. And I'm like, everything does work. Because if you think about anything that you want to do, you can literally find all kinds of examples, right? And so for me, I remember when I first, because I've been on my business now for 5 years. When I first started my business, I was trying to think of the right way to do it. She was like, Alicia, everything works. Like I can give you an example of people that has taken this path, this path, and that path. But it's about like, what is it that you want and what is going to work for you? And so with my clients, they're trying to find this path, right? Like, as far as success and what it should look like. I started realizing like how many people have these rules in our mind, like, no, it has to go this way and has to go this way. I had a client that I was working with. She felt like, well, if I want VP role, then it goes from here, then here, and then here. I'm like, who told you that? I'm like, if you want to operate in this position, and honestly, you already are, like, it doesn't have to go a certain way. For them, they keep thinking that next step has to look a certain way.
Yeah. I love that you unpack this for us in a personal and professional sense, right? Like, taking a step back, you've talked about your experience, having your daughter and going through that, but then realizing, but I want her here. This is what I want. And so you got excited. And then kind of from a professional lens, we have these different steps that we want to take to get to where we want to be. But at the end of the day, what is a constant in both of those scenarios is the outcome. What is the outcome that you want from this? Because then you can have a plan in place. You can say, from a personal sense, I want to have a standard birth process, no epidural, whatever the case is, personal life, right? Because again, we have to consider a lot of this happens in our personal and professional life. And in a professional sense, you can say, well, this is the steps I need to take. And I'm a good example of this myself, because I have been on a career trajectory to the C-suite. And a part of that is being a C-level leader in a Fortune company at some point. When I was laid off from my full-time job, I took about a month off, and then I started to jump into applying for other jobs and, thinking in my head, I have to get back and I have to start working because I don't want to have this gap in my resume. I need to have that growth from director to VP to C-suite. I had this whole idea of what it was. And then as I was searching for jobs, I was like, this is not what I want. Something was off. And you have to dig into that intuition of ours that tells us something is not right here. This is not what you're trying to achieve right now. And me believing in God and the universe, I feel like there is a plan for me. I don't know what it is. I try to plan out what that looks like for myself. But at least in my experience, I've been pulled into certain things where it's a realization, this epiphany of, okay, you know what? I have my first business, Tape Brand Consulting. I've done well there, but it's been a side hustle at this point because of having a full-time job. I want to really take that full steam ahead and start building a larger pipeline of clients. And then I had the idea around the multifaceted executive, and I got really excited about that. And things changed. I said, I'm not going to be looking for a full-time job anymore. I'm going to focus on entrepreneurship. Now, does that potentially deter me from reaching my ultimate goal of what I just mentioned on being on a career path to the C-suite at a Fortune company? Absolutely not. But there's a myth right now that in order to be at those executive levels, you have to work at these companies for 20 plus years. You need to wait your time for that to happen. But as our world is changing and leadership is changing, there are going to be experts that could get pulled in, like myself, you, and different experiences and opportunities where we're needed. And so from my personal example, yes, I still have a goal to be a C-suite leader at a Fortune company at some point, but I have to take a detour. There's something else I need to achieve. So that's what I'm going to go after. We can't be afraid to change the course of our plan to get to the outcome that we want, right?
I love that. Yeah. And then also, and I love you sharing that because, because the reality is, Amanda, you could end up being in the same role. It's, people have this great ambition to be in a C-suite, which is fine. But what is the impact that you want to make in that role? Because that's the thing is, like, if you're only after a job title and there's no other why, once you get it, it's going to feel empty. It's going to feel like, okay, is this it? With my clients, I'm like, okay, I understand that you want this role, which is fine. But like, let's sit down and get clear on the actual impact you want to make and get clear on that. Because a lot of times they tend to find what they really do or these goals they have or even how they want to operate in the role isn't even in a C-suite role. Right. But you know what I mean? I think it's important to get clear on, okay, why is it that I want this? And then I've had some clients who I work with, when we first started, their desire was C-suite. As we started to kind of flesh some things out, they decided that they wanted to kind of start their own thing. Right. So, I think it's, especially in the time that we are in now, I know there is some fear. They feel like, all these people have lost jobs, but I personally think this is a time of opportunity that we have not ever seen before. We have seen some loss. We've also seen some amazing things happen. And if there was ever a time to be clear on what you want, that time is now. And I think that's the key.
Yep. I'm glad you brought that up, because my vision in the career path that I've outlined for myself is about gaining experience and having the position to make an impact. So obviously I'm in a position right now where I can impact people's lives. I do it all the time through different ways, volunteering, my businesses, etc. When I think about getting to a C-suite position at a Fortune company, it's about the broader audience I'm able to reach and the representation I'm able to bring where there's not enough Latinos. Like among the Fortune 1000, there's only 4% Latino representation. And when you get to Latinas, it's 1%. When we have leaders that are bold, ambitious, driven, and they're smart, they can build relationships, they can make moves that help businesses grow in the right direction. You need people like that in those rooms, especially when they come from different groups, cultures, backgrounds, etc. Right? On top of that, I want to get into angel investing, and then I want to get into private equity. Some of those type of roles really require you to have insight into what is happening at a C-level and board level in Fortune companies. And so for me, it's a part of the experience, the growth, and the impact that I want to make, and also helping with the representation. To your point,
I love that.
That is a career path for you, or whatever, whether it's entrepreneurship, being a C-suite leader at any company, you have to understand your why. If you don't have that purpose built into your brand and a clear alignment with that opportunity, then it is just a title. Like I'm a board leader for Alpha, the Association of Latino Professionals for America. We're 100% all volunteers on this board. My position is EVP of Operations, and I do exactly what an EVP of Operations would do in a corporation where I have a number of directors reporting into me, and I do it all for free because I don't care about the title. I care about the impact that I'm able to make on not only the board, but the community that we're serving. So when you have that big picture in mind, sure, the title is nice, but it's not like end all be all.
I love that. And I love how you explain both sides, because when it comes to job titles, no, it doesn't mean much, but we know that when it comes to the level of influence you want, or the level of access you want to certain rooms, it means something. It does, right? And that's why I do what I do, because just like you were saying earlier, we need more of us in the rooms, and not just in the rooms, but us having the power to have a voice.
Right. Yeah. And, speaking, because we've spoke around kind of underrepresented groups throughout the conversation too, what's one piece of advice that you would give to executives and even emerging leaders that come from these underrepresented groups? What is your advice to them in terms of building that career path for themselves and leading with authenticity and leading with clarity?
Yeah, I believe that who you work for is far more important than what you do. And I want to explain that. Like, a lot of my clients find themselves in the middle of a job search, and they're like, I don't know what role to apply for. But I believe that knowing who you want to work for first is more important. The impact you want to make, or how much growth you want to experience. If you're not doing it in the right environment, I've seen so many times that wrong environment will make you doubt everything. I've had clients come to me like, I don't want to do this no more. They feel like what they want to do is change careers. But once we start coaching, they're like, I love what I do. I just don't like who I do it for. When you're thinking about that path of yours, get clear on what are the core values that you have, because that will allow you to see if you're in an environment where you can find yourself able to thrive at. So, for example, one of my core values is work life, but who you work for, their number one focus is sales. It won't blend, right? Because I don't mind having to do great work, but I really want to have a life outside of work. But their focus is sales by all means, even if that's you having to work every day. I think we focus too much on the job we want, which is important. But I think we need to focus more on who we work for. And this is, again, why I do what I do, because you spend too much time at work, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day to find yourself in environments that you're not aligned with or that you have outgrown. And just because you work from home, that does not mean that you escape that. Because I've worked with clients who work from home and they still feel it through the Teams call, through the Zooms call. Okay. I think it's important for us to get really clear in this time, understanding what is it that you really want and who you want to work for.
Yeah. And even if we go back to our main theme of today, leading with service and letting faith do the rest. When you have that service to yourself, you're then able to serve other people in different ways. You let faith take care of all the fear that comes up and the things that are out of your control. And whatever that faith means to you, like I said, it could be religious, it could not be. It's okay to have that plan for yourself, but you need to make sure that you're able to adapt to things that need to change as a part of your plan. And I agree. You can think about roles that you want to be in. I think that's always a good start to understanding, well, what am I most driven by? What am I passionate about? But also, back to our earlier point, when you're not proving and you're demonstrating, roles can get created for you. I've seen it. I've
seen it.
Accustomed to this throughout my career. I've had many times where a role was created for me because there was a value that I was offering that leaders were noticing from me beyond the role that I was in. I'm not saying go into these roles where they try to make you do 10 different jobs all with one title, because that happens too. I'm talking about when someone clearly sees you demonstrating your value, they're going to be in a room talking about you with other people saying, oh, you're designing this new role. I have a perfect fit. Actually, Alicia, she's amazing. She does this and that. I see her, already doing the things that you are looking for in this particular role. So sometimes when we stay very focused on a specific role, we could be limiting yourself to only those opportunities, as opposed to maybe there's something bigger and better out there that you didn't even realize could be possible or already exist. Alicia, I want to thank you because you've shared so much wisdom with us, and it was rooted in service and identity and conviction. I appreciate that. How can people stay connected with you after listening into the episode?
Yeah, well, of course, LinkedIn is my top choice. I have close to 52,000 followers over there. And then, of course, if you want any more information, then my site is IamAliciaPerkins.com.
Perfect. Okay, so you heard Alicia. Make sure to connect with her on LinkedIn. Make sure to follow her website, IamAliciaPerkins.com. And I promise you will not be disappointed. Thank you again for being a guest. And for those in our audience, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Download your episode on Spotify. Thanks for listening to the Multifaceted Executive Podcast, where each episode reminds us that leadership looks different from every seat at the table. Cheers.